The Last Flamekeeper, Part 1. Chapter 1. The Sky That Burned Backward. Long ago, when the gods still feared fire, dragons wrote their laws across the sky in flame. But that age had ended. Now, all that remained were ashes. The village of Emberbury sat beneath the spine of the Blackthorn Mountains, nestled between two dead rivers and a forest that never grew back. The people there did not speak of dragons. Not openly. Not unless the wind was loud enough to carry the words away. And yet, Kaelen dreamed of them constantly. In his dreams, scales were mirrors. Wings were storms. And something ancient called to him by a name he'd never heard before. Wormblood. He woke to the scent of soot and the crackling sound of a world unraveling. The sky above Emberbury had turned red. Not the red of dawn. Not the red of fire. This was deeper, an ancient red, the kind that lived in the marrow of old bones. And streaking across that crimson sky was a line of black fire, curling backward like a serpent swallowing its own tail. Kaelen stood barefoot in the frostbitten field behind his hut, eyes wide as the heavens screamed. Then the voice came, and not from the sky, but from within him. One of us yet breathes. And the worm brand on his back, long dormant, faint as a birthmark, burned to life. They found him at dawn, collapsed in the ash-dusted field. He said nothing. He couldn't. The village healer, Mira, unwrapped his tunic to check for frostbite and recoiled. Gods. What is that? Carved into his skin like an ember-bloomed scar was a spiral of flame and bone, glowing faintly beneath the surface. It pulsed with light that didn't belong to any fire she'd ever seen. And Kaelen whispered the only word he could form. Wormfire. That night, the stars vanished. And something vast passed overhead in silence, a shape that should not exist. An elder drake, dying but awake. The last of its kind. And it was searching. In the mountains, the ash-marked priests lit black lanterns and began the hunt of the final flame. In the Empire's capital, the bone archivists unsealed the scroll of extinction. And far below the surface, in a cavern that pulsed like a sleeping heart, a chain of obsidian iron shifted. Kaelen stood at the edge of the riverbed that never ran and watched the smoke curl toward him. He was no longer just a boy from Emberbury. He was the last Flamekeeper's heir. And something in him had woken. Chapter 2. The Ash-Marked Ride. The Empire's roads were black for a reason. They were paved not with stone, but with the dust of dragons. Crushed bone. Burned scale. Pulverized talon. The Ash-Marked called it holy. To the rest of the world, it was a warning. Nothing sacred survives beneath an Empire's boot. They rode out at dawn. 13 riders in robes of smoldering gray, their faces hidden behind soot-blackened masks of carved dragabone. Their eyes glowed faintly with Wyrmthrone, a brand burned into their flesh by fire that no longer exists. The one who led them rode a beast not born of horse nor hellhound, but something in between. She was called Mother Bray, and even the crows avoided her shadow. In Emberbury, Kaelen felt the cold before the hoofs. He stood at the village edge, wrapped in his cloak, trying to will the pain from his back. The brand hadn't stopped burning since the sky turned. He hadn't slept. His fingers trembled. But it wasn't fear. It was remembrance. Something inside him was trying to remember how to breathe fire. Behind him, Mira and the elders whispered about fleeing, hiding, burying the boy deep in the mine tunnels. They'll see it on him. They'll smell the ember. The ash-marked are coming for the curse. Kaelen didn't hear them. He was staring at the black road beyond the frost line, and the dust that rose like breath from the mouths of riding beasts. They arrived without sound. The hooves made no noise. The wind stopped. Birdsong vanished. Only the sound of cracking ash echoed as they dismounted, robes trailing like smoke. The tallest among them approached the villagers, gloved hands folded, voice low and hollow. One among you bears the worm brand. No one answered. But they knew. The ash-marked always knew. Kaelen stepped forward. He hadn't meant to. His feet simply moved. The tallest rider tilted their head, as if examining an ancient relic returned to the light. And so the brand survives. Against decree. Against flame. Against death itself. Kaelen's voice shook. I didn't ask for it. Nor did the fire ask to be stolen from the dragons. The ash-marked rider reached for his shoulder. And the brand blazed. A burst of orange light roared from Kaelen's back, knocking both of them backward. The rider hit the ground with a grunt. Smoke curled from their chestplate. The villagers screamed. The ash-marked drew blades made of fused scale and charred bone. Kaelen didn't run. He stood in the flame print he'd just scorched into the dirt, breathing like something ancient had stirred in his chest. "He's awakening," one rider whispered. "We must kill him now," said another. But the leader rose slowly, brushing ash from their robes. "No. We bring him to the Bone Cathedral. Let the throne see what it buried." They seized Kaelen with coils of cold iron. And as they rode away, bound and bloodied, Kaelen looked back at Emberbury. He did not cry, because somehow, deep beneath the ember of his fear, he knew the village was already dead. Chapter 3. The Bone Cathedral. They rode through silence. Kaelen's wrists were bound in wormsteel chains, cold as the void between stars, humming with a faint power that numbed his thoughts. Every time he tried to think of escape, the chain pulsed, and the idea vanished. "This is how they bind flame," whispered something in the back of his mind. "Not with iron. With forgetfulness." He gritted his teeth and stayed alert. Because the ash mark didn't just ride him toward judgment. They were riding him to memory's grave. It took 2 days to reach the edge of the ember wastes. A vast, blackened expanse where no birds flew and no insects hummed. The ground was jagged glass. The air smelled of burned marrow. And rising from the center of it, like the ribcage of a fallen god, stood the Bone Cathedral. Its spires were made from dragon bones, some bleached, some charred, some fused together like melted ivory. Enormous ribs arched skyward, hollow and howling with wind. Bells forged from scale and fong swung in slow, eerie rhythm, their toll deep and wrong. Kaelen had seen cathedrals before, but never one that breathed. They dragged him past the gates, through the outer halls where scribes in red ash robes etched prayers into dragonskin parchment. The inner sanctum reeked of oil, smoke, and despair. Statues lined the walls, monstrous, elegant, coiling dragons locked in agony. Some were actual bones turned to art. Some were stone. All were twisted into poses of defeat. At the far end of the hall stood the throne of dust, not a seat, but a massive concave basin filled with ash. It was said to contain the ground remains of the first Wyrm, the dragon who taught the sky to burn. Kaelen was forced to his knees before it, and from the shadows stepped a figure in robes of black and bone ivory, face painted with the sigil of flame reversed. "The Wyrmkeeper." "So," said the voice, dry as scorched vellum. "The Flamekeeper's heir lives." Kaelen's throat was tight. "You've killed all the others." "No. We preserve the world. Your kind would bring it back to ash and skyfire. We offer bones. Bones endure." The Wyrmkeeper knelt beside him, placing a hand over Kaelen's heart. It burned. Not with heat, but with recognition. "You carry more than blood. You carry the last breath. Tell me, did it speak to you?" Kaelen said nothing, because he didn't need to. The brand on his back flared through the chain, glowing hot, and the ash in the basin stirred. The Wyrmkeeper stepped back in alarm. The basin roiled, lifting in spirals. And in the center of the throne, the ash twisted into a dragon's eye. It opened. It looked directly at Kaelen, and then it wept smoke. The scribe screamed. The ash mark drew blades. Kaelen's chain snapped, molten from within. And something entered him. Not a voice, not a vision, but a feeling. "You are not the last Flamekeeper. You are the first of the reborn." Kaelen rose. Ash clung to his skin like armor. And behind him, the wall of dragon statues cracked open, revealing a sealed stair spiraling into the dark earth below. The Wyrmkeeper's voice shook. "That passage is forbidden." But Kaelen didn't hear him. The flame was leading him down, toward the Heartgrave, where the first Wyrm waited. Chapter 4. The Heartgrave. The stairs groaned beneath his feet, ancient stone what with condensation and soot. Each step was carved with sigils so old, they pulsed faintly at Kaelen's approach, as if the glyphs themselves remembered what he was. Behind him, no one followed. Not the ash-marked. Not the Wyrmkeeper. Not even the guards who had once bound him. The dragon's eye in the ash basin still wept smoke in the chamber above. And the sin of it, the raw, aching truth of it, drew Kaelen deeper. He walks with breath not his own. He walks with fire that forgot how to speak. The whispers curled around him. Not voices, but memories. At the bottom of the stair, the stone gave way to something older. Bone. The walls shimmered pale in the faint light. Not marble, not ivory. Dragabone. Vast ribs curved over the chamber like a sleeping beast's cage. Talons longer than spears pierced the walls like columns. And in the center of it all, resting in a circular hollow of glassed obsidian, was a massive, shattered skull. It radiated no heat, but it pulsed. Kaelen stepped forward, the brand on his back flaring in time with the heartbeat in the air. His feet slipped on ash glass, the remains of flame once so hot it melted bedrock. He was in the heart of the first Wyrm. The skull was etched with thousands of runes, some words, some warnings, some wounds. One crack near the left eye was sealed with gold, and upon it was carved a name. Cyric the Forgotten Flame. The first dragon. The one whose death birthed the empire. The one whose breath was sealed and sold, its power divided like spoils of war. And now, that breath was moving. Kaelen dropped to his knees, not in reverence, but because his bones could not hold the weight of what stirred within him. He pressed a hand to the floor, and the worm brand on his back burned like open flame. "What are you?" he whispered. The skull exhaled. "Not air, memory." And Kaelen saw a sky of fire. Cities turned to glass. Dragons soaring like gods. Men in robes building spires from bones, binding flame in chains of faith. One dragon rising above them all, Cyric. Wings of starlight. Eyes like galaxies. Then betrayal. 13 human kings kneeling, offering peace. Poison gold. A forged truce that ended with ash. Cyric falling from the sky like a star gone cold. And a single flame, pulled from her chest. Sealed. Buried. Waiting. Kaelen's eyes burned. He screamed, but no sound came. The fire was in him now. Not metaphor. Literal. The first Wyrm's heart flame, a flicker of creation itself, had chosen him as its keeper. He could feel it curling behind his ribs. "You will not be my prison," the flame whispered. "You will be my voice." The ash glass beneath him cracked. The chamber began to collapse. Kaelen stood, and for the first time, fire leapt from his hands. Not red, not orange, but silver gold and violet, the color of forgotten flame. Above, in the bone cathedral, the ash-marked fell to their knees. The sky outside split with lightning that danced like a dragon's claw. And the crows scattered over the ember waste as one, screaming in flight. Because the last flame had been lit again. And it remembered everything. Chapter 5. The Broken Crown. In the heart of the empire, the Wyrmthrone split down its center. No one struck it. No hand touched it. But the ancient throne, carved from fused wormfang and bone ash, cracked with a thunderous roar that echoed through the ivory keep, shaking the spires, toppling icons, and silencing the chants of priests mid him. Blood ran from the eyes of the stone dragon above it. And the empress did not move. She sat stiffly upon the crumbling seat, draped in a cloak of dark scale and fire thread, her long braids coiled like serpents across her shoulders. Her face, ageless and lined in gold leaf ink, betrayed no emotion. But her fingers, gloved in wormhide, gripped the arms of the throne just tight enough to crack the lacquer. "The flame lives," she whispered. Across the high chamber, her generals froze. "Summon the ash-marked," she said. "All of them. They were last seen at the Bone Cathedral, Your Grace. Then dig them out. Far to the east, across the scorched sea and past the sunless dune vale, a child lit a candle. She did not know why. Her name was Rien, and she was born beneath a buried temple, the last daughter of a forgotten order sworn to protect the memory of dragons, not their deaths. The moment the flame in Kaelen's chest had ignited, she had felt it. "The fire is choosing again," whispered her grandmother, blind and dying in the cot nearby. "Who?" Rien asked. "The last. Or the first. Or both." She turned to the mirror. In it, her reflection flickered, a brief glimpse of a boy with ash on his face and violet flame in his eyes. In the western provinces, revolt stirred. The rebel banners, long hidden in catacombs and ruins, were raised once more. Not for a king, not for a bloodline, but for flame, for memory. The cry echoed through the ruins. "The Flamekeeper lives. Let the ash rise." Back at the Bone Cathedral, Kaelen stood in the ruins of the Heartgrave. Ash clung to him like a second skin, and fire still pulsed behind his eyes. He had climbed back through the collapsed tunnel alone. No ash-marked had dared follow. They watched him now with reverence and fear. The Wyrmkeeper approached, robes burned, mask cracked. "Do you understand what you've done?" Kaelen nodded slowly. "I didn't choose this. It chose you. And now the Empire will break to pieces or melt itself whole to smother you." Kaelen turned to the rising sun beyond the shattered walls of the cathedral. "Then let it try. Somewhere deep within the halls of the Imperial Citadel. In a room no one had entered in over a century. A pair of wings carved from solid firestone trembled. A prison that was not called a prison began to hum. A name that had not been spoken aloud in 5 generations burned itself into parchment in the royal library. And far beneath the ash fields of the east, something ancient opened its eyes. "I smell her fire again," it growled. "The first flame has returned." Chapter 6. The Ember Chain. They tried to seal the gate behind him. Iron teeth. Ash-marked steel. Flame-dead magic etched in glyphs older than most gods. But the fire in Kaelen's chest was no longer sleeping. As he stepped through the broken archway of the bone cathedral, chains of molten light uncoiled from his wrists and scattered their locks like glass. The doors burst open, and he walked into exile. Alone. Mira had once told him, there's no such thing as a clean escape. Only the one that leaves a trail warm enough to follow. Kaelen's trail burned across half the countryside. Villagers whispered of a boy with fire on his breath and ash clinging to his skin like a second shadow. Of dreams where dragons wept and flame shaped itself into a name: Kaelen. Flamekeeper. Unbroken. By the time he reached the Ember Pine Ravine, half the ash-marked were already hunting him. The other half were watching, to see if he would burn out or ignite the world. He collapsed in the ruins of a firewatch tower, one of the old sentry posts built during the Age of Culling, when men stood watch against wings in the sky. The stairs had long crumbled. The upper spires were cracked. The emblem of the dragon's skull had faded on the banners. He lay against the moss-covered stone and stared at his hands. No flame. Not now. The ember slept again, but not willingly. It hummed beneath his ribs like a heart that hated him. Night fell cold and sharp. That's when he heard the whisper. Not from within. From behind him. "You don't wear it well, you know." The fire. Kaelen turned sharply, rising to his feet. A figure stood among the ruined walls. Hooded. Cloaked in black with threads of copper flame sewn in a spiral down their sleeves. Around their neck, a chain of broken thistle glass, each link etched with tiny dragon eyes. They pulled back the hood. She was older than him. Late 20s. Sharp-eyed. Skin like stormstone. A scar across her cheek from jaw to temple. "Name's Ashra, last of the Ember Chain," she said. "And before you ask, yes, I serve the dragons. Before they were gods." Kaelen hesitated. "You're supposed to be extinct. So are dragons," Ashra replied. "But we know how to sleep with one eye open." She studied him. Slowly. Uncomfortably. "You're leaking heat. In places that should be sealed. I don't know how to stop it." "Of course you don't. You've been taught to fear it. To forget it. But fire doesn't kill because it's cruel. It kills because no one listens to it until it's burning down the door." She tossed him a flask. He drank. It burned. Not like fire, but like truth. That night, beside the ruined tower, Ashra lit a circle of ember tones, old Flamekeeper tech, outlawed decades ago, and told him the story of the Ember Chain. We weren't priests. We weren't rebels. We were rememberers. We kept the stories that survived the ash. Not the ones the Empire carved into cathedrals, but the ones whispered to children at night. "The truth?" Kaelen asked. "The whole truth." She laughed once. Bitter. "No such thing. But closer than the ash-marked will ever admit." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a scroll wrapped in iron ribbon. The seal was broken. "This was meant for you. Passed down. Flamekeeper to Flamekeeper. It's how we teach the fire to listen." Kaelen hesitated, then unrolled it. The letters shimmered in the dark. Not ink. Ash fire. And as he read the first line, the ember inside him flared to life. Not wild. Not painful. But ready. "I can feel it breathing," he whispered. "Good," said Ashra, eyes narrowing. "Because the next time it wakes, you'll need it to fight back." Far away, across the scorched coast, the ash-marked received their orders. "The Flamekeeper has fled. He must not reach the ruins of Etheros. Burn what stands in his way. And bring back the heart." Chapter 7. The Forgotten Gate. They rode before dawn, cloaked in mist and silence. Ashra's mount was no ordinary beast. It was a drayhound, part lizard, part warhorse, its scaled hide shifting from charcoal to soot as the light changed. Kaelen rode behind her, clutching the saddle and squinting at the horizon, where the hills rolled like waves of black stone. "We're close," Ashra murmured. "The Empire thinks it collapsed years ago. That's what we wanted them to think." "What is it?" Kaelen asked. "One of the last doors they couldn't seal. A place where fire still answers by name. We called it the Forgotten Gate." They passed a forest of petrified trees, white and brittle, forever frozen in the shape of reaching hands. The wind here whispered in voices Kaelen couldn't quite understand, and the ember in his chest stirred nervously. At the edge of the ruins, they dismounted. Before them rose a shattered temple, half swallowed by the earth, its entrance choked by twisted roots and collapsed stone. The remnants of a once great arch stood above it, inscribed with words worn nearly smooth. To those who tend the flame, unseen a welcome. This is it? Kaelen asked. No, Ashra said. This is just the top. The gate lies beneath. They cleared a path through rubble and roots until they uncovered a stone ring sunk into the ground, etched with concentric spirals and lit faintly from within, not with firelight, but something older. Ashra placed her hand in the center. Blood and memory, she said. A drop of her blood struck the stone. The spiral unlocked, spinning outward with a soft grinding sound. The center of the floor lowered like an elevator, revealing a dark shaft lit only by pulsing glyphs. Down we go, she said. How far? Kaelen asked. To the bones of the world. The descent was silent save for the echo of ancient gears turning. The walls around them were lined with relics, masks, scrolls, preserved Flamekeeper sigils. All cracked, all dim, but not forgotten. When the platform stopped, they stepped into a circular chamber that smelled faintly of scorched metal and incense. At its center stood a mirror of black glass, ringed in dragonbone. Beneath it, a fire pit, long dead, and surrounding it, 12 empty pedestals. This is where they kept the heart maps, Ashra said. Every known resting place of a fallen dragon. The Empire took most of them, burned the rest. She walked slowly to the far wall and pressed her hand to a carving. A compartment slid open. Inside it, a scroll sealed with silver wire and a pendant shaped like a dragon's eye. Ashra unsealed the scroll and laid it open. Kaelen looked and gasped. A map. Not of land, but of depth. Mountains, yes. Valleys, yes. But beneath them, veins. Caverns. Sleeping hollows marked not in miles, but in heat. And at the very center of the map, ringed by forgotten glyphs, a name burned faintly in ancient script. Veyra, the buried Wyrmlord. That one, Ashra said, voice taut, was never killed. Only sealed. The Empire buried him under half a mountain and told the world he never existed. Why? Kaelen asked, the ember in his chest growing hot. Because Veyra didn't just breathe flame. He breathed time. The Empire feared him more than they feared the sky itself. The chamber trembled. A gust of wind, hot and dry, blew from the sealed wall behind the mirror. Then, a whisper. Not from Ashra. Not from Kaelen. But from the stone itself. The flame remembers me. Kaelen staggered back. The ember in his chest flared violently, searing his ribs. His vision blurred. And for a moment, he saw the mountain cracking open, saw the Wyrm uncoiling in slow, ancient hunger. Then, silence. Ashra steadied him. We don't wake him unless we have no other choice. And if we don't? Kaelen asked, voice hoarse. Then you'd better learn fast how to burn without him. She rolled the map carefully, slid it into her cloak, and handed him the pendant. It's key to the map. The flame in your chest will guide you. But be warned, if you get too close before you're ready, it might wake him anyway. Above ground, the sky darkened. Ash clouds swept from the north. And a single ash-marked scout, hidden in the petrified trees, turned his steed and galloped away with wide eyes. He's found the map, the scout whispered into the wind. And he has the chain with him. The flame is moving. Chapter 8. The Hollow Road. The Hollow Road was not marked on any Imperial maps. It was carved long ago, not by human hands, but by Wyrms fleeing the final siege. Their claws had melted the stone, their fire had carved the path, and their sorrow had soaked it through. Now, centuries later, the road still hissed under moonlight, coiled through black hills like a scar that refused to heal. And Kaelen could feel it before they reached it. It's breathing, he said quietly. Ashra nodded, unslinging her blade, a narrow, curved sword forged from salvaged dragafang. Everything that bleeds memory does. Stay near. Speak nothing. By midday, they reached the edge of it. The hollow road began in a steep descent between two broken cliffs, framed by the twisted remains of wrought iron sigils, wards once meant to seal something in. They no longer shimmered. Just hung, rusted and forgotten, like crowns over graves. Ashra muttered a phrase Kaelen didn't understand. The pendant around his neck vibrated faintly. The fire won't like this place, she said. And if we're unlucky, it'll show you things. What kind of things? The kind that want to stay. The first hour passed in silence. But as they pressed deeper, the mist grew thick. low and unnatural. Kaelen could barely see 10 paces ahead. The stones beneath their feet were slick with condensation, though no water fell. Strange runes, half melted, lined the walls. Then came the whispers. Not loud, not angry, just familiar. Kaelen. He froze. The voice had come from ahead. From within the fog. Ashra didn't stop walking. Don't listen. It's memory rot. It pulls what you ache for and dresses it in sound. But it sounded like. They always do. A shadow crossed the path ahead. Humanoid. Cloaked. Kaelen reached instinctively for his flame, but it refused to rise. His chest felt cold, as if the ember had been wrapped in frost. Ashra dropped low, blade at the ready. We're not alone. The mist parted. A man stepped forward, tall, armored in dull scale, his eyes hidden behind a mask shaped like a blank face. No mouth. No eyes. No features. Just smooth obsidian. His cloak rippled with sewn-in embers, dim and dying. Around his neck hung a chain of white iron. The mark of a silencer. Kaelen of Emberbree, the voice echoed, not from his mouth, but from around them. You were not meant to carry the breath. Let us return it to stillness. Kaelen stepped back. What is he? He whispered. Ashra's grip tightened. The Empire's worst weapon. They don't kill you. They unmake you. Silence the flame so thoroughly even memory forgets you lived. Run. No. Fight smart. The silencer moved with inhuman speed. Ashra parried the first strike, barely. Sparks flew from the blade as it clashed with the silencer's chain whip, which hissed through the air like burning oil. Kaelen tried to call the fire, but it wouldn't answer. Not here. Not yet. Ashra shouted, dodging a strike that cracked the stone beside her. It's draining the ember around us. Kaelen's breath came fast. His hands glowed faintly, flickers of violet and gold, but the silencer's presence was like an eclipse. Then, something changed. From Kaelen's pendant, a sliver of heat broke free. It spiraled into his wrist, and a memory flared to life. He saw himself, smaller, maybe 6 or 7, sitting beside his mother's fire. She had held a dying coal in her hand, whispering to it, and the coal had glowed. Fire listens, Kael. Not just to pain, but to truth. The memory ignited inside him, and the ember awoke. Kaelen screamed. A ring of fire burst outward from his chest, not wild, but focused. It didn't consume, it pushed. The silencer staggered, cloak igniting at the edges. Ashra lunged, blade striking true, piercing the silencer's chest plate. The mask cracked, just once. The thing hissed and vanished, mist curling behind it like retreating breath. Silence returned. Kaelen dropped to his knees, panting. Ashra knelt beside him, pressing a cloth to his neck. Well, that was reckless. But it worked. Barely. She looked at him, really looked. You didn't just call the flame. You remembered with it. Kaelen nodded slowly. I think that's what it wants. Not control. Not rage. Just memory. Ashra smiled faintly. Then we're halfway to becoming dangerous. The hollow road quieted. The mist faded. And on the horizon, black peaks rose through the haze like sleeping beasts. The mountain of Veyra, Ashra said. We're close now. And somewhere, beneath those peaks, a pair of ancient eyes opened, and a voice older than cities whispered from stone to sky. Come then, keeper of breath. I remember you. Chapter 9, The Mountain That Listens. The wind changed the moment they stepped into the valley. It no longer howled. It breathed. The cliffs surrounding the basin were jagged and black, as if carved by talons. The air shimmered faintly with ash that didn't fall, but rose, drifting upward from unseen vents in the stone. The sky was overcast, but light pooled oddly across the slopes, forming shapes that seemed to shift when no one looked directly at them. Kaelen felt it before he saw it. A presence beneath the earth. Not awake, but not quite sleeping. We're being watched, he said. Ashra dismounted, scanning the terrain. You're not wrong. This is no grave. This is a heartbeat waiting to finish. The path wound up the side of the largest peak, a sharp-cut trail of ancient stone, its edges scorched and cracked. Along the sides were old Flamekeeper markers, wards, glyphs, and sigils, long dead. Some were broken deliberately. Others had been melted. Halfway up the trail, Kaelen paused. The pendant at his neck vibrated violently. Then a tremor passed through the mountain. Not thunder. Not collapse. But a deep, rhythmic pulse. The mountain was breathing. At the summit, they found it, the door of firebound silence. It was a massive, curved arch etched with draconic script. The center was sealed with a slab of fused stone, dragabone, and mirror steel, a material said to reflect not just light, but intention. Only those chosen by the breath could open it. Or so the legend claimed. Kaelen stepped forward. The brand on his back burned. The stone shimmered once, then cracked faintly. Ashra gripped her blade. If this door opens, we don't run in. We bow. We listen. We do not lie. Why? Kaelen asked, eyes fixed on the glowing fracture. Because dragons don't ask for honesty. They enforce it. Kaelen placed his hand on the seal. The moment his skin touched the surface, light spilled outward in a ring of violet and silver fire. The door hissed, the glyphs ignited, and then the mountain shook. The seal shattered inward, pieces floating as if weightless, revealing an impossibly black chamber beyond. And from within that blackness came a sound no living thing had heard in centuries. The slow inhale of a waking Wyrmthrone. They entered, and found themselves not in a cave, but a cathedral of bone and crystal. The walls pulsed with embedded veins of flame, soft and pale, as though the mountain itself was remembering what it once held. And at the far end, coiled in an endless spiral around a throne of molten stone, was the remnant of Veyra. Not his body. Not yet. But his soul fire, a massive spectral serpent, shaped in smoke and scale, wrapped in chains of unmelting ash. Its eyes opened. Two glowing rings of memory and wrath. Flamekeeper, it whispered. Kaelen stepped forward, trembling. Do you come to awaken me? His voice caught in his throat. Ashra whispered behind him. This is where it changes. Say yes, and the world burns again. Say no, and the Empire wins. Kaelen stared at the Wormlord's spectral form. His ember pulsed, not in fear, but kinship. I don't want to awaken you, he said. Then why have you come? The Wyrm rumbled. To ask what you remember. That the Empire made us forget. The chamber fell utterly still. Then Veyra's soul form uncoiled, stretching impossibly high above them. Then kneel, little spark. And I shall tell you. What they buried in my fire. Chapter 10. What the fire remembers. Kaelen knelt before the soul flame of Veyra, the Wormlord of time, beneath the living mountain that bore his name. Around him, flame danced across the walls like liquid memory. Ashra stood close behind, silent and still, her hand resting on the hilt of her blade, not in fear, but reverence. Above them, the Wyrm's vast translucent form stirred like smoke inside glass. 100 feet of spectral coil glowed softly in the dark, and within each ripple of his scaled body, echoes moved, images from the past, flickering and unfinished. We remember in flame, the Wyrm said. It is our blood and breath. And when you killed us, you did not end us. You shattered our memory into 1,000 pieces. Scattered it. Hid it. Lied about it. Kaelen swallowed hard. Then show me. Please. Let me remember. The flames in the chamber dimmed, and a circle of violet fire formed around Kaelen. He gasped as his body stiffened, not in pain, but in immersion. Suddenly, he was no longer kneeling. He was standing on a battlefield of glass and shadow, under a sky torn open by fire. Dragons soared above, dozens of them. Not beasts, but beings of thought and power, their wings trailing language, their breath rewriting the world as they passed. And below them stood humans. Not warriors. Keepers. Clad in robes of scale thread and light ink. Holding staffs not to command, but to translate. The Flamekeepers of the first age. They did not worship the Wyrm mess. They served as their memory. This was before the ash marked, Kaelen whispered. Before the lie, Veyra replied. The vision shifted. The sky darkened. A citadel of bone rose from the earth, the first Wyrmthrone. But it was not built by dragons. It was built by men. Kaelen watched in horror as flame was bound to stone, twisted into engines, sealed into relics. The Flamekeepers were split apart. Some executed. Others corrupted. And the dragons, slain in ambush, one by one, their memories stolen and reforged into imperial power. Kaelen fell to his knees in the vision. The throne of embers. A prison, said the Wyrm. Not a seat of rule. It was made from the rib of Sirik. It burns still. And if you sit upon it. The Wyrm's eyes narrowed. You will not become king. You will become the next lock on the fire. The vision ended. Kaelen gasped and staggered back, sweat soaking his clothes, the ember in his chest beating like a second heart. Ashra helped steady him. So that's why the Empire protects it so fiercely, she murmured. They don't want anyone freeing the flame. Just wearing it. Veyra lowered his head, and for the first time, his tone softened. I was not sealed here because I was too strong. I was sealed because I remembered too much. Because I carried not just my flame, but theirs. Whose? Kaelen asked. The forgotten. The betrayed. The fire that did not want war. A long silence. Kaelen looked down at his hands, still shaking from the memory. Then what do I do? He asked. You burn. But not blindly. You carry us. But not like chains. You keep the flame not in rage, but in truth. Veyra's soul form began to dim. There is more. So much more. But you are not ready. Not yet. Will I see you again? Kaelen asked. No. A pause. But you will see her. The mountain trembled. A fracture split the floor, clean, glowing, humming with power. From it rose a shard of flame-forged crystal, shaped like a serpent's fang. Kaelen stepped forward and took it in both hands. The moment his skin touched it, the fire in his chest quieted, no longer a storm. Now, a compass. Ashra helped him out of the chamber. The doors sealed behind them. Outside, night had fallen. And on the horizon, rising from the southern coast in defiance of history and rule, the imperial capital was burning. Not from Kaelen's fire, but from a new rebellion. Word spreading, Ashra said, watching the distant flames. They're calling you the flame bearer now. I don't want titles. Doesn't matter. They give them to you when you light a match near a tyrant. Far beneath the bone cathedral, in the sealed crypts where no living soul was meant to walk. A girl in chains lifted her head as her eyes flared with violet fire. She smiled. So, he remembers.
Every story has an ending, but some mysteries live on. If you enjoyed this tale, don't let it fade into the shadows. Smash that like button and subscribe for more thrilling stories that will transport you beyond the veil of the ordinary. Subscribe to our channel and your name will appear at the beginning of our next video, where we will personally thank you for your subscribing. Tap the bell icon so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Share your thoughts in the comments. What twists did you see coming? And what secrets do you think still remain? Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and let the next story begin.